Hello again. As you know, I am Eli, the computer guy, and today's class is Introduction to Practical Hacking and Penetration Testing. So this is the introductory class to this track. We are going to be doing practical hacking and penetration testing. Now today, if you're watching this class, I'm not going to be doing any demonstrations, so you can put this on in the background and just kind of listen to me talk, because this specific class today is more just me talking at you guys and not actually doing any demonstrations. So basically, with a collaboration with Null Set Computers out in Reno, Nevada, we are doing a new practical hacking class. We are doing things such as man-in-the-middle attacks, being able to grab passwords, doing all kinds of cool things in order to compromise systems, grab user information, all of that kind of stuff. So we are starting this practical class in actually how to do hacking so that you guys can see how to do it in the real world. Now before I really start to go into this class, the thing that I'm going to say that right off the bat is, remember that the first rule of Hack Club is don't talk about Hack Club. Don't do it. So now, when we're going to be talking about practical hacking, the first thing that we have to talk about is what are the legitimate reasons for why we would do hacking. So why would we grab passwords off of the network? Why would we try to break encryption? Why would we try to do these things? What possible legitimate reason is there for it? Well, the first reason is probably the dumbest reason, and I've gotten paid a lot of money for this in the real world, and so it is a really real reason, is because the owners of systems accidentally lock themselves out of their own systems. They forget passwords. They forget how information is encrypted. They forget how things are done. And then all of a sudden, they're looking at their server that has $100,000 worth of data on it, and they have no way to access it. This really does happen, and I've really gotten paid very good money for re-accessing data, regaining the ability to deal with data from owners. So the first legitimate reason for why you would do practical hacking is simply to regain access for the people who actually own the information. The second reason, and the reason you hear a lot about for people that do things like ethical hacking, is you do what is called penetration testing. So you go into a company has hired you, an owner has hired you to say, I want to know what the real vulnerabilities of our systems are. So the owner of the company knows they have to spend money on security, but they don't want to spend money willy-nilly. They don't want to spend money on security features that they don't actually need. So what they might do is hire you to come in to do penetration testing, to do these hacking techniques, to see what their real vulnerabilities are, so that they can make an educated decision on what new systems that they should buy. Again, the biggest problem I know, having been a business owner a few times now, is business owners are many times more than willing to pay money in order to make sure their infrastructure is stable and secure, but what they don't want to do is pay money for things that they don't actually need. I mean, nobody wants to pay for money for things that they don't actually need, so that they might hire a penetration tester to come in and prove why it is they should buy services or solutions, to say, hey, look, these are all the security vulnerabilities, look at all the passwords I grabbed, you should probably do something about this. The final reason that you might want to do practical hacking or penetration testing is for your own curiosity. So by doing the hacking techniques, by doing this penetration testing, you can start to learn why or how systems work as they do. A lot of times when you're using computers, when you're using these systems, you kind of lock it into your head that you kind of think that the systems do things in ways that they don't actually do it. You just have this idea that systems work in a way that they actually don't work. And by doing this hacking, by doing this penetration testing, it gives you a better idea how these systems actually communicate with each other, how they work, so on and so forth. So you may just do this for educational purposes. So those are the three real reasons why you may do what is called ethical hacking. So ethical hacking is hacking when you are attacking systems you are allowed to attack for an ethical reason. Black hat hacking as well, stuff we are not going to be talking about. Not going to be talking about. So if you want to start doing hacking, the one thing that you will notice with this track as I teach more and more of these classes is I am not going to hold your hand through the entire class. So a lot of my classes, let's say on Windows Server 2012 or Introduction to HTML, I went very, very slow. I repeated myself an infinite number of times to make sure you grasp every single thing that I was saying. Well, as I talk about with hacking, when you're doing hacking, this is an intermediate level class. So these are going to be intermediate level classes. What this means is you already need to have a solid foundation in things like Linux, TCP/IP network, Ethernet networking, wireless networking, Windows, so on and so forth. I'm not going to be explaining to you how to install an operating system. I'm not going to be explaining to you how to install network drivers. It is just assumed that you know that information. And if you don't know, if you're watching these hacking classes and you're not sure what I'm talking about, well, that's a very good signal to say that you need to go back and learn the basic stuff first and then come and start learning these hacking things. Again, the biggest problem that I have with people who want to learn hacking is they want to start with hacking. They want to come in and they want to say, I want to be a hacker. And you go, well, you don't know the difference between a switch and a router. If you go to the Linux command line, you have no idea what to do next. You don't even know what Active Directory is, and yet you want to be a hacker? It's not that you can't be, but you need to go learn those other things before you start doing the hacking. So again, this is going to be a big thing as we go through this track, is you already need to have the foundation in all of this stuff. Or it's all going to be a bunch of gobbledygook. You need that foundation. Now the big thing, again, you are going to need to know networking, but for all of you Windows and Mac guys, you need to have a solid foundation in Linux. It's just how the world works. A lot of this hacking stuff, 98% of this hacking stuff is all built for the Linux environment. Since it's free, since it's open source, since the people that are doing hacking and all that know Linux, or the computer science guys, they have built all of this stuff for Linux. So you need to be comfortable in the Linux environment, and you need to be comfortable in the Linux command line environment. If you're not comfortable there, well, then you need to go. I have a whole track on Linux. Go learn that Linux track and then come back and do these things. Because if you don't know tar, if you don't know, the basics of Linux command line, again, it's all going to be a bunch of gobbledygook. Now in this track, I am going to be showing you how to do these things with off-the-shelf tools. So these are tools that already exist. Most of them are open source, most of them are free. You just have to understand how to use them in Linux. So we're not going to be building any new software out there. There's already so much of this stuff already exists. Again, it's free. You just download it, you start to use it. And for me, again, like I said, I'm not going to teach you how to program new hacking tools. I'm going to be showing you how to use Kali, which is the latest iteration of Backtrack. I'm going to be showing you how to use Metasploit, how to use Subterfuge, how to use a lot of these tools. But these tools already exist. So this is something, just so you guys understand, we're not going to get like hard into coding here. This is stuff you can download, just like you can download WinZip. Or Firefox. You can download Metasploit and start hacking the hell out of the network. So when you're going to be doing hacking, I just want to remind you that you should only be attacking systems that either you own or you have been given explicit permission by the owners of the systems. Now remember, if you start hacking other people's systems, you can run into a number of problems. The first problem is that you might violate terms of service. So whenever you get an internet service for your house, so whether you have Comcast or Verizon or Qwest, you sign off on terms of service on how you are going to use that internet connection. If you get a Facebook account, you agree to a set of terms of service. If you get a Twitter account, if you get a Gmail account, if you get a PayPal account, if you get any of these accounts, you are going to agree to terms of service. And basically, those terms of service are all based on what that vendor thinks is appropriate. And at any time, that vendor may shut you off just because they don't like you. They're worried about what you are doing. So be very careful when you're doing things like hacking, because if it seems like you're doing hacking and you're violating terms of service, internet service providers may cut off your service. Groups or companies like Facebook or Twitter might turn off your account in a heartbeat. So be very, very, very careful with that. If you're going to be playing around, make sure you're not playing around on your primary account. If you have a Facebook account and you have 2,000 friends and you have a couple of pages created and your entire life is on that Facebook account, don't screw around with that Facebook account. If you want to play, create a new Facebook account so that that new Facebook account gets shut down. Well, then you didn't care about that. You didn't lose that big Facebook account you've been spending 2 years creating. I've seen this happen in the real world. Oh, so many tears from some 15 or 16-year-old that was doing some really stupid crap, and you go, well, why were you doing that on your own Facebook account? Don't do that. So you could violate terms of service when you're doing hacking. So that's a bad thing. The next thing that you may violate, that you have to be concerned about, is you might violate civil law. So be careful. You know, if you're wandering away from the ethical stuff, you're wandering across that line. Be careful of violating civil law. So civil law is where civilian parties, you know, companies or other people can try to sue you in court. So they can try to sue you for copyright violations, they can try to sue you for pirating, they can try to sue you for damages. If you use, let's say, a low orbit ion cannon to attack a website, and they can track it back to you. They can try to sue you for the downtime and the lost business. One thing to remember in civil court, and we're going to be talking about this when you're dealing with courts, is that there's a different requirement for evidence in civil court than there is in criminal court. So this is something to keep in mind. In civil court, in order to be found guilty, there simply has to be a preponderance of the evidence. So what preponderance of the evidence means is that if you have a prosecution that's going after you and you're the defendant, whoever gets to the 51% of what people think, that is the person who wins. So in criminal court, it's beyond the evidentiary responsibility is beyond a reasonable doubt. In civil court, basically, the jurors may just really not like you, and they may just think, yeah, that little bastard did it. And then you may have, you may have severe civil punishment against you. That can be a lot of money. Again, one of the people that pirated like 26 different songs has, I don't know, was it like a $250,000 judgment against her. So be careful with civil lawsuits. So that's one reason why you want to stay on the ethical side. You don't want to go over to the non-ethical side. Now you may, if you attack systems that you're not allowed to attack, you may also get into criminal law. So criminal law is where you can actually go into jail and go into the criminal justice system. Now the thing to remember there is that if the police are trying to go after you, if the prosecutor's trying to go after you, they have to have more than a reasonable doubt in the jury's mind. So this is just something to keep in mind. So when we're talking about the things that you could violate, if you have terms of service, Comcast or whatever company could kind of just shut you off on a whim. If you go to civil law, well, then it's a preponderance of evidence. Whoever has a little more evidence, they're going to be the ones to win. In the criminal law, it is beyond a reasonable doubt. Now, the good thing nowadays with beyond a reasonable doubt, the good thing for hacker criminals is with beyond a reasonable doubt, what it means is that the average person has to be almost absolutely darn sure that that person did something, right? So if somebody goes into a convenience store and they pull out a gun and they shoot the other guy, that's something pretty simple to understand. So the juror just has to think, do I think that guy was in the convenience store with a gun and pulled the trigger? That's all they have to figure out, right? So beyond a reasonable doubt, that bastard's gonna fry. When we start talking about hacking, the good thing, bad thing, whatever you want to call it, is that this stuff is so confusing. Most people have no idea what the hell anybody is talking about when they're talking about technology. So when you start talking about a hacker using a Linux operating system and bouncing through multiple proxy servers in order to attack a system, that gets very, very, very confusing. And so if the jurors get confused, then they have a reasonable doubt, not because you're not the one that did it, just because they have no idea what's going on. And then you may get away with it simply because they don't have a clue. So that's one thing to think about. The final thing to think about, and this is something that you guys should think about when we're thinking about violations, because we're dealing with my fan base, I have a national fan base or international fan base, is you do have to worry about intelligence services. So if you're one of these people, I have fans, I really do. I have fans in Syria, I have fans in Iraq, I even have some fans in Iran, right? So here in the US, our criminal justice system, our police are pansies compared to some other places in the world. Because first, they have to figure out who the hell did the hacking. Then once they figured out who they did the hacking, they have to track the person down. Then even when they know absolutely that little cocky 14-year-old SOB is the one who did it, well, then they've got to get all of this evidence together. They have to go to the prosecutor. The prosecutor has to decide whether or not they actually want to create a case against the 14-year-old. Then they've actually got to go to trial. Then at trial, they've got to convince the jurors, and it's a whole mess. And most likely, frankly, the 14-year-old is going to walk away. Dun, 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 unless they're complete idiots. Well, when you're dealing with intelligence services, you know, they don't necessarily have to deal with all that. Basically, they can go, well, we know that this IP address here tried to attack our systems, so we're just going to go in and we're going to take everybody in the house and throw them all in jail. So be careful about that. Again, when we're talking about things like hacking and we're talking about penalties, the penalties really, you know, there's a wide range of things that may happen to you. You may get your internet connection disconnected, or your entire family may go to some undocumented prison somewhere. So be careful. Keep your hacking on the white side of life. White hat hacking. So if you're going to be doing practical hacking, if you're going to be doing penetration for other people, so you're going to go out there and you are going to hack other people's systems. They are going to hire you and they are going to pay you to hack their systems. The one thing that I will say is you should go out for $1,000, go find a decent lawyer to write up a contract so that the owner of the system can sign the contract, so you make sure everything is legal and you don't get any blowback against you. When you start to go in and you start to do hacking, you want to make sure that you have the explicit authorization of the owner of the systems and be given the right to do the hacking, or you may run into a lot of problems. So one of the things that I'll say with this, with the practical hacking, if you're going to be doing it, make sure you get a lawyer to write up a contract for a very solid contract so that you can have the owners of the systems sign it so that you won't be held liable. Honestly, if you're going to be doing this in a business environment, you're going to be getting paid for this. I would also go to an insurance broker and make sure you get omissions and errors insurance, so that if you do get sued, that you know, basically you have insurance to cover it. The reason being is because when you attack these systems, when you hack these systems, again, when you're dealing with technology, there may be unintended consequences. If you are hacking a network system and you're looking at communications, well, the question is if an employee has personal communication going through that company's infrastructure, you grab that personal communication and you read it, then have you violated the rights of that employee? That's why you want to have a contract that states, I am allowed to do what I am doing, and the owner of these systems has already made sure I have the legal right to do whatever it is I'm doing. Also, you want to be covered because if you go in and you start doing hacking, again, unintended consequences, you may slow down the network. Whatever you're doing may unintentionally break something on the network. If, when you're doing your work, you know, you crash the network or the network crashes while you're working on the systems, you want a contract that states you will not be held liable for what happened. So that's one of the things to think about. One of the other things to think about when you're doing hacking, just keep this in mind, is that hacking your own systems, your own. So you own the computer, you own the little robot, you own the little doohickey. Simply by hacking it, trying to get into it, trying to reverse engineer it, you may be violating terms of service and you may be risking a civil lawsuit if you make it known to the world. So be careful about this. Sony had some little Sony bot that somebody tried to hack. They went in, they reverse engineered it, they told the world what they did, and then Sony went back and sued the bejesus out of them because Sony said that simply by opening the package that the person had agreed to the terms of service, they had violated the reverse engineering component of that terms of service, and then Sony decided to go sue the hell out of them. So, if you did not catch it the first time, the second rule of Hack Club is don't talk about Hack Club. And this is going to be a big thing when you're doing hacking, is just don't talk about it. The more you talk about it, the more likely it is somebody will come back at you and try to, you know, criminal charges, terms of service, civil charges. If you just do whatever it is you're doing and keep your mouth shut, it is much less likely that anything will happen to you. So the second rule of Hack Club is don't talk about Hack Club. Now, the thing is, like, if you're going out there and you're trying to attack other people's systems, you really have to be careful, because when we're talking about that criminal law, simply by trying to attack another person's system, you may be violating numerous criminal laws. Aaron Swartz, he was up for like 6 felonies. They were trying to throw his butt in prison for up to 30 years, and basically all he did was he hid a laptop computer in a network closet to download public source documents and then basically put them up on a different website. For that, he was going to get 30 years in prison before he decided balls to that and hung himself and basically killed himself. So be careful. Again, there's this guy, Eric Rosal. Again, what you have to be careful about with this, if you attack systems that are not your own, there is a hacker tool called the Low Orbit Ion Cannon. This thing has been around forever. It's a basic fundamental tool for doing something called denial of service attacks. So I think it was Anonymous who decided that they're going to go after, as I recall, it was the Koch brothers. Republicans, whole thing. But basically, Anonymous said, hey, we want to crash the Koch brothers web server. So this guy, Eric Rosal, all he did is he downloaded the low orbit ion cannon. He was on the Anonymous, the little IRC chat board. They said, attack this particular IP address. He plugged in the IP address. He hit go. And now, currently, he was arrested. He's facing up to $20,000 in fines and 5 years in prison for plugging in an IP address and hitting fire. So again, be very, very, very careful. So when we're doing this practical hacking, this penetration testing, keep this on the good side. Now, to protect yourself, so you're thinking about all this, and you're like, oh, how am I going to keep myself safe? Now, a couple of things that you have to keep in mind if you are going to be trying to keep yourself safe. One, don't hack people you shouldn't be trying to hack. The other thing is that you shouldn't be trusting basically anybody. Especially don't trust anybody you don't know. So one of the big rules is if you're going to be downloading the tools that I'll be showing you how to use in these classes, always make sure to download them and install them onto isolated systems. Now, what do I mean by this and why? Well, hackers are a devious bunch, right? Hackers like to hack because it's fun. And hey, what isn't more fun than hacking a hacker, right? There's no honor among hackers. I'm sure there's honor among hackers, but if they can screw with another hacker, they will do it in a heartbeat. So what some of these hackers do is they create hacking utilities so that you can download them and attack other people's website or do penetration testing or do whatever. What they don't tell you is the hidden functionality is that they put into that tool utilities so that they can then attack or take control of your system. So you think you're being really swift and cool by downloading this little hacking utility so you can attack other people, when in fact, as soon as you install that stupid little thing, the hacker that created it now controls your systems and they own you. So that's a bad thing. So if you're going to be downloading these hacking utilities, make sure to put them onto isolated computers. So like my computer right here, this computer has Outlook on it and Word, and this is what I do my work on. I don't download any hacking utilities to this thing. I have my own special computer over here that's completely isolated. I never plug in a password into it. I never go to Facebook on it. I never go to LinkedIn on it. It has virtual machines. Basically, I have one computer. I'm going to talk to you about this in another class, but I have one very powerful computer that I never do anything on other than lab work. In that, I have VirtualBox so that I can create virtual machines, and in those virtual machines, I install hacking utilities, and then once I'm done with the hacking utilities, I just destroy the entire virtual machine so that I don't have to worry about it anymore. So if you're going to be downloading these hacking utilities, make sure you put them onto isolated systems. The other thing, along with that isolation, is make sure you put them onto an isolated network, right? So I showed you, we did a class a little bit ago on something called Subterfuge that goes in and it scans the entire network and grabs and tries to grab usernames and passwords. Again, we're talking about other hackers. You grab a utility to scan usernames and passwords, and hey, what's to stop the hacker that created that utility from then just kind of having that utility phone home every once in a while with a text file of all the usernames and passwords? So imagine you install that utility onto your isolated computer, but it's plugged into the network. You're logging into Facebook, you're logging into LinkedIn, you're logging into Twitter, and every time you do it, hey, it's really cool. Look, my computer sees the usernames and passwords I'm plugging in. Isn't that awesome? What you're not thinking is that computer that you have that software on, again, every night may bundle up all that information into a text file and FTP it off to some hacker who then bundles that with a bunch of other usernames and passwords and sells it off to the Russian mob or something. So be careful with that. Honestly, I have my own, well, you can't see it here, but I have my own dedicated switch for, like I say, this isolated system that I deal with. And whenever I'm done with hacking classes, I literally unplug the network cable so it can't talk to anybody, can't talk to anything. So be careful with that. You want to isolate your computers and you want to isolate the network. Again, when we're talking about being careful, don't trust anyone. I get all of these, the most ridiculous questions in the world on my YouTube channel. So I have the Introduction to Hacking, and I have Hacking DNS, and I have Hacking Subterfuge, and then I get all of these people that will send me direct messages on basically, hey, how do I commit a felony? Don't. Again, as I've talked about before, remember, I am not joking. Remember, I am for empire, right? I used to be a soldier. I got my degree in criminal justice. I believe in the Constitution and the American system and blah, blah, blah. I think we need to fix it a little bit. I think there are problems around the edges. But overall, I believe in all of that stuff. I believe in the FBI. I believe in the CIA. I believe in the NSA. I believe in all, well, CIA again. We need to work on the CIA. But I believe in law enforcement and all that. So you don't want to be emailing me or messaging me on how to commit a felony. If I actually took any of you people seriously, it would be a very bad thing. Personally, I just delete it. But what you have to be thinking about, what you really need to be thinking about, is that there are prosecutors, there are law enforcement officials, there are intelligence agents that would like nothing more than to fry a couple of 16-year-old hackers so that it improves their resume. Again, one of the big things with Aaron Swartz, one of the big things with a lot of these hacker trials that have been going on lately, is people say that many of these crimes should not actually have gone to court, and even if they went to court, that the people should be looking at a 6-month prison sentence or a year prison sentence, not a 30-year prison sentence. Well, the reason that Aaron Swartz was looking at a 30-year prison sentence or these other things is because the prosecutors, they want to burn hackers. Right now, hackers are like public enemy number 2, right after Al-Qaeda. So if a prosecutor can take a couple of hackers down, that looks really, really good on their government resume and will help them get a bonus and a raise and will do wonderful things for their careers. So when you're running around on the internet and you start asking people, how do I break into somebody else's Facebook account, which is a felony, that's not a good thing. Because you might get a law enforcement officer, you might get an intelligence person, you might get somebody that's going to be really, really, really nasty and evil to you, and that's just a bad thing. So don't trust anybody online. Also, the other thing that I will say, one of the reasons that I will never respond to any of you guys on this whole hacking issue is remember that if somebody comes to you and asks you for help in order to commit a felony, and you give them help, you are now an accomplice. So I can tell you guys about hacking. I can do this Introduction to Hacking class. I can do a class on subterfuge. I can do a class on Kali. I can do a class on Evil Gray. I can do a class on low orbit ion cannon. And God bless the First Amendment of the United States, freedom of speech, will protect me. It will protect me for doing these classes in general. As soon as you come to me and say, Eli, I want to hack this girl's Facebook account, then if I say, well, what you need to do is, at that point it goes beyond being educational and I am now giving you support. So I'm not going to do it, and I would suggest that you don't do it for anybody else. So finally, the third rule of Hack Club is, for the love of all that is good, don't talk about Hack Club. Again, this is the biggest thing, and I'll tell you again, coming from the criminal justice background, coming from all that, the number one way that police officers and intelligence agents and all that, the number one way they figure out who did what is because people have a really nasty tendency to want to talk about whatever it is they did. If everybody kept their mouth shut, we'd have like nobody in prison because none of the police officers would be able to figure out who the hell did anything. Really, seriously. I mean, my instructors and all that, one of the best places to go to figure out who committed a murder was you just go to the local bar and you say, hey, has anybody walked in lately and talked about shooting somebody? They go, oh this guy, whatever. He came in yesterday. Was talking about blowing somebody's head off. Oh, okay. And that's how they figure it out. Again, the same thing goes with hacking. You sit there and go onto YouTube and Facebook and Twitter, and you start talking about all these things you did. No, just. Now, the final thing before we go off, before we'll end this class, when we're talking about this practical hacking, we talk about penetration testing and all that. One of the things that I want you to think about is that you should be careful about who you affiliate yourself with, especially in the modern world. I know talking with a lot of you young guys, the whole hacktivist movement, the whole anonymous movement seems really sexy, seems really cool. But I would warn you to be very, very careful about associating yourself with these movements, especially with a group such as Anonymous. Now, Anonymous, not going to get into the politics of it, but the big thing with Anonymous is that it is a leaderless group. It's like the ungroup, right? Everything's un nowadays. So they're the ungroup. So they're a group that's without a leader. Well, the thing is, they're making a lot of trouble for a lot of people. Now, in the modern world, all you young folk think of these things. So you think of like ungroups. So I'm a member of Anonymous, but I don't necessarily support what Anonymous is doing. You know what I'm saying? I'm a member, but I'm not a member at the same time. And if you're 16 or 17 or 20, this makes a whole hell of a lot of sense to you, right? Let me tell you something. If you're 50, that doesn't make a damn bit of sense. You're either a member of something or you ain't a member of something. Either you're a member of Anonymous or you ain't a member of Anonymous. Why I can see this being a problem going into the future is a lot of people are saying that they're members of Anonymous without really putting a lot of thought into what Anonymous is doing and whether they really support all the things that Anonymous is doing. And as we move into the future, there is going to be more and more energy used for going after hackers. Again, if you don't talk about it, you may support Anonymous, you may like Anonymous, but if you don't say anything about it, nobody's the wiser, right? Whereas if you're sitting there going, yeah, I love Anonymous, yeah, I use the low orbit ion cannon to blast the Coke website, you just put that on Facebook or Twitter, you now are admitting to a cyber crime, admitting to what many people would argue is a terrorist organization, and that could go bad for you very, 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 very quickly. So one of the things that I'll say, being a hacker, this is like a skill set. It's like a trade. I am a hacker. I am a car mechanic. I am a hairdresser, right? There's a difference between a trade of hacker and being a member of a movement or organization such as Anonymous or LulzSec or any of that kind of stuff. So that is one thing that I would have you think about. Just be careful. So this is the first class in this track. Again, we're going to be doing these practical hacking, this penetration testing, trying to get around security, trying to show you the vulnerabilities of so many of these computer systems, hopefully, so that you can go out to your clients or to your bosses, convince them to pay for your services, convince them to buy new equipment so that you can make their systems more secure. Again, as I've talked about before in some of my ramblings, I am for empire, I'm for the Constitution and all that. So I'm really not trying to teach you guys this to do black hat. It's really not a joke. Again, with anything in technology, I mean, you can give a person a stapler and they can either, staple paper, or they can bang somebody in the head with it. You can't really stop that. But I'm really trying to teach you guys how to use this for common sense things. Again, once you start using these utilities, it gets very, very, very scary with how vulnerable our systems are. And so by learning how vulnerable our systems are in the real world, by showing you these tools to show you how to do the hacking, the hope is you'll go, wow, so that you'll improve the security, so on and so forth. So as we wrap this up, as we go away, as we finish this class, the final thoughts are, again, if you're going to be hacking, don't talk about it. Don't trust anybody. Just get that in your mind. If you're going to be doing hacking, don't trust anybody. And again, with that not trusting, it even goes to your clients. If somebody simply verbally tells you, yes, I give you permission to attack the system, don't do it. Get it in writing. get it in writing that it states that this person owns the system and gives you the right to hack into the system and will hold you harmless for anything that happens during the hacking event. If you don't get that, all kinds of bad things can happen. Again, having done computers, having done technology for a long time, I've always played by cover your ass, the CYA mentality, and I have had people that with a straight face have brought in systems, servers that are not their own, and tried to pay me to hack them. And if you do that, you are assisting in a felony. Whether or not you actually go to jail for it is its whole thing, but it can just get nasty and horrible. And, hey guys, at the end of the day, we all want to go home and have a beer and a pizza and watch Game of Thrones, you don't want to be going through the criminal justice system. So, as you know, I'm Eli the Computer Guy. This class was Introduction to Practical Hacking and Penetration Testing. Again, I'm working with Nullset Computers out of Reno, Nevada to create a really, really, really cool set of hacking tutorials for you. Again, in all seriousness, I'm not joking. Use it for the ethical stuff. Don't go to the dark side. Like I say, that poor guy, Eric, all he did was plug in an IP address and hit fire, and he's looking at $20,000 in fines and up to 5 years in prison. That is just utterly painful. So, as always, I enjoy teaching this class, and I look forward to seeing you at the next one.